Nobody accidentally becomes someone remarkable. Let that sit for a second. Every person you admire, every athlete who performs under impossible pressure, every entrepreneur who built something from nothing, every individual who carries themselves with that quiet, unshakable confidence, they all have one thing in common. They made a habit of doing what most people avoid, not occasionally, not when they felt ready, daily, deliberately, with full awareness that it was going to be uncomfortable and doing it anyway. What I've come to understand is that mental toughness is not a personality trait you're born with. It is a muscle, and like every muscle, it only grows under resistance. The problem is that the modern world has become extraordinarily good at removing resistance. One-click delivery, skip ad, swipe away anything that makes you uncomfortable. We have engineered friction out of almost everything, and in doing so, we have quietly engineered resilience out of ourselves. And then people stand confused, wondering why they crumble under pressure, why they can't stay consistent, why the goal always feels just slightly out of reach. The answer is not more motivation. The answer is more difficulty, chosen difficulty, pursued on purpose every single day. If that hits somewhere real for you, subscribe to Elevate Your Daily. Stick around, this is exactly where we live. Good to have you here. New or returning, welcome back to an honest conversation. Let's get straight into it today, because this topic is one I feel deeply about, and I don't want to waste a single second of your time. I'll tell you something I'm not particularly proud of. A few years back, I was the person who always had a reason. Too tired to work out, too uncertain to start the project, too nervous to have the difficult conversation. I dressed it up as being thoughtful, being careful, waiting for the right moment. But I realized one afternoon, sitting in the same spot I'd been sitting in for months while my goals gathered dust, that I wasn't being thoughtful, I was being afraid. And fear, when you feed it with avoidance, doesn't shrink. It grows, it gets comfortable, it starts making decisions for you. That was the moment I understood, not read, not heard, but genuinely understood that the hard thing I was avoiding was not the obstacle, it was the door. Discomfort is the price of admission. Pay it daily. Every worthwhile thing in life sits on the other side of something uncomfortable. The difficult conversation, the early alarm, the workout when you have nothing left, the pitch you make knowing you might be rejected. From my point of view, discomfort is not a warning sign, it is a direction sign. It is pointing you exactly where you need to go. I've noticed that the moments I felt most proud of myself were never the easy moments. They were the moments I pushed through something I genuinely did not want to do. A concrete example, cold showers. Simple, almost embarrassingly small, but every morning you stand under cold water when every instinct screams to reach for the warm tap, you are training your brain to override comfort in favor of commitment. That training transfers into the gym, into the business, into the life. The comfort zone is not safety, it's a very slow decline. I used to think staying comfortable was neutral, like it was simply resting, holding steady. Now I understand that comfort without challenge is not stillness, it is decay. I've grown to see that a muscle unused atrophies, a mind unchallenged softens. A person who avoids difficulty long enough loses the belief that they can handle it when it inevitably arrives, and it always arrives. Life does not negotiate, it does not check whether you have been warming up. The job disappears, the relationship breaks, the health scare comes. And in that moment, everything you have or haven't been building shows up immediately. The person who has been doing hard things daily walks into that storm differently than the person who has been avoiding every inconvenience. One bends, one breaks. The training was happening either way. Small, hard things done consistently rewire your identity. Here is something I believe with everything I have. Your identity is not fixed. It is built brick by brick through the evidence you give yourself about who you are. Every time you do the hard thing, you cast a vote for a stronger version of yourself. Every time you avoid it, you cast a vote for the weaker one. I've experienced this firsthand. When I committed to writing every morning, even when I had nothing to say, even when it felt pointless, something shifted about 3 weeks. I stopped identifying as someone who struggled to be consistent. I became someone who showed up. That identity change was more valuable than anything I actually wrote, because identity drives behavior at a level that motivation simply cannot reach. Pressure reveals what practice built. I've learned that you never truly know what you're made of until you're under real pressure. But here is what separates the people who perform under pressure from those who collapse. The ones who perform practiced discomfort voluntarily. They created their own pressure before life created it for them. Think about David Goggins, a man who, by his own account, had every reason to stay small. Difficult childhood, physical limitations, a life that handed him very little. And he chose deliberately and repeatedly to do things that broke him down so he could find out what was underneath. Not because it was fun, because he understood that the version of himself capable of handling anything had to be forged, not found. You do not discover mental toughness. You build it, rep by rep, rejection by rejection, hard morning by hard morning. Avoiding the hard thing always costs more than doing it. This is the one I wish someone had told me earlier, and I wish I had believed sooner. The difficult conversation you avoid does not disappear, it festers and becomes a broken relationship or a toxic work environment. The workout you skip does not simply go unrecorded, it becomes a pattern of skipping and then a story about who you are. The project you delay because you're not ready yet does not wait patiently, it quietly turns into a regret you carry for years. What I've realized is that the short-term discomfort of doing the hard thing is almost always a fraction of the long-term cost of avoiding it. Every avoidance has a price. It just gets billed later with interest when you can least afford to pay. Doing hard things teaches you to trust yourself. The deepest benefit of choosing difficulty daily is not the external result, it is the internal one. I've come to understand that self-trust, genuine, bone-deep confidence in your own ability to handle what comes, is built through evidence, and the evidence only accumulates when you do things that were hard and survive them, then do harder things, then harder still. Each time you expand the ceiling of what you believe you can handle. I used to doubt myself in rooms where I had every right to be confident. That doubt did not come from failure, it came from a lack of proof. The more hard things I deliberately did, the more proof I collected, and eventually the doubt simply had less room to breathe. In my opinion, I've realized that we're living in a generation being quietly convinced that ease is the goal, that if something is hard, it means something is wrong, that struggle is a problem to solve rather than a process to embrace, and I think that's one of the most damaging ideas circulating right now. From where I honestly stand, I've come to understand that the hard path and the good path are very often the same path. The person who runs towards difficulty while everyone else walks away from it, that person becomes rare, and rare is powerful. So my genuine ask to you today is not to overhaul everything at once. It's simpler than that. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, do one thing you have been avoiding. Not the biggest thing on the list, just one uncomfortable thing. Do it before you have time to negotiate with yourself. Because every hard thing you do is a quiet message to the world, and more importantly, to yourself, that you are not someone who folds. You are someone who goes through. And that person becomes unstoppable.